What is up, Buffalo Fanatics? C-Bot here with you, live on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel on a Wednesday afternoon. And that, of course, can only mean one thing. It is the smoke break. So good to have you in midday on Hump Day for a little breaking news. The NFL owners convened once again to discuss the infamous Tush Push, and the ruling has just been made, one that many did not see coming. Going to talk about that this afternoon. We're also going to talk about some other new additives to the NFL or surrounding the NFL, including NFL players playing flag football in the Olympics. What an odd time to be alive. We'll also talk about another rule change that actually did get shut down, and that was the Detroit Lions' proposal to change the playoff ruling, the playoff seeding based on how you finish the season and where you are within your division. We'll also talk about my top 10 players that are most important to the future of the Buffalo Bills. Just finished that project up for, I think, the fourth or fifth consecutive year with Joe Marino and friends. That just aired over on the Locked On Bills channel the last few days. And as I do every year, once that is live, I like to come on here and talk with you guys about my personal ballot, how I reached the conclusion that I did, and talk to you guys about my ranking 1 through 10 in terms of the most important Buffalo Bills to the future of the organization. But let's start with the breaking news that just came out about 10 minutes ago, and that is that the Tush Push will live on. The Tush Push continues, at least for 2025. It looked like it was going to be banned, and in a change of events, rapidly it seemed, the Tush Push will remain legal for at least the 2025 season. Good to see everybody in here. By the way, we're doing a mic check. Mic is off, of course. We got to start keeping tally.
Somebody's got to keep tally. Somebody who's in every week, whether it's Matty DeVideo, Brian, whoever, everyone who's in here, religiously. And I love you. Let's start keeping a tally. Let's start keeping a tally of when the hell I keep the mic on and when I keep it off. And then we'll tally it up at the end of the year. And if I can get more on than off, then at least at that point, I'm winning. Because at this point right now, I'm losing. This is feeling like way too common of an occurrence lately. I don't know what else to tell you. I tell you the same thing every time. The mic settings are always the same, yet sometimes it magically works and sometimes it doesn't. And do you know what I do to make it work? All I do is unclick it and click it again. The same setting. And then all of a sudden it works. But this time, much to the chagrin of the last times, I have the comment section right in front of me. So I saw it early, caught it early. Thank you to everyone who said mic check. It's Heath letting me know, Matty DeVideo, Josh N. Thank you. Anyway, good to have you in on a hump day afternoon with some breaking news coming out of the NFL. So if you did not know, back at the owners meeting, what was it, a little over a month ago, a month and a half or so ago, every year there's an owners meeting. All the coaches get together as well. You know this. They vote on a variety of different topics, potential rule changes that are proposed. That's where that all goes down. During that owners meeting, a proposal was put on the table to eliminate the Tush Push. Now, this was really being pushed home by the Green Bay Packers of all teams. I don't know why they were the front runner in all this. I don't know why they were the designated team that put this play on the chopping block for debate. I think whether or not they were the ones to do it or not would be irrelevant, because I think at some point it was going to be put on the table. It has been one of the most controversial aspects of the NFL for a while now, probably since its inception, about 3 years ago when the Philadelphia Eagles really debuted this into what it has become today. It became the talk of the town. I mean, you know it's massive. If you ask my wife what the tush push is, she'll know what it is immediately. In fact, she's infatuated with it. She loves it. Anytime that there is a tush push about to happen in a game, and we know the Bills run it more than anybody, other than Philadelphia, really. Anytime there's a tush push in the game, I let my wife know. She loves it. She's like in love with the play. My point here is, if it's reaching that atmosphere where my wife, who, I mean, she doesn't care. She loves the play. She's well aware of it. It's become a cultural thing. It's in the zeitgeist, the tush push. And that's because the Philadelphia Eagles took a play that really didn't exist, even though it did at the same time. It essentially is just a QB sneak with a couple of additives. But because the Philadelphia Eagles were so successful at it, it became this spectacle, but also this mess at the same time. And then it became a massive topic for debate. Massive topic for debate. The Bills hopped on this train rather quickly. They saw that they had a freak at quarterback, right? They already had a quarterback in Josh Allen, who was probably the best QB sneaker in the league based on the fact that he is the most athletic freak in the league at the position. And the Bills have been utilizing this play as much as the Philadelphia Eagles, believe it or not. They really have. In fact, the last 3 years, and this is why I thought this was so prevalent to the Buffalo Bills, in looking this up and in watching how this whole thing was unfolding, the Buffalo Bills, based on the ruling today and based on what was being voted on today, this was more relevant to the Bills than it was to any other team not named the Philadelphia Eagles. I saw this stat on Yahoo Sports, who had gotten the information from ESPN Research. The Bills and the Eagles have ran the tush push more than the 30 other teams in the NFL combined over the last 3 years. Both teams had a success rate of 87%, meaning every time they ran that play, 80% of the time, the play either resulted in a touchdown or a first down. Now, the play became very controversial because many people were linking it to the idea that it was a dangerous type play. But there really isn't a whole lot of fact to back that up. There's no evidence that proves that that particular play is more dangerous than any other play. To me, it was always an optic thing. And as somebody who's been infatuated with the NFL my entire life and following it my entire life, you do see that play, and it does stand out among the rest. It does not necessarily look like an NFL play. And that's because it's not your traditional NFL play. That is why it became so controversial. That's why it became so well known. That's why people like my wife, when they see it, they're like, this is great. I don't even know what this is. I love it. And the Eagles perfected it. But the Bills really adopted it. When you think about the tush push, you immediately think of the Philadelphia Eagles. In fact, as soon as this ruling was not, I don't even know how you would say this. If you've been following this, it was almost set in stone that it was going to be banned. Almost set in stone. In fact, this morning it was being reported as it was being voted on prior to the vote. It was being reported that in all likelihood, it was almost guaranteed that it was going to be banned after this vote took place this morning. It was supposed to be voted on during that owners meeting, and it got tabled for whatever reason. I think it's because it's been very controversial. I don't know. It got tabled until today. Then the voting got tabled again. They voted on it this morning, and it apparently went down to they had to do it again amongst the owners only in what they called a privileged meeting. I have no idea. But the long story short on this is I think it all came down to the optics of the play. The play doesn't look clean. It looks ugly. And if you're not an avid NFL fan and you're watching the game and you see it, you're like, what is this? This is a rugby scrum. This looks like rugby, whatever. But when I think of the tush push, outside of course, Philadelphia basically inventing it and perfecting it and being the team that is most linked to it, the Buffalo Bills, in actuality, are almost as linked to this play as much as the Philadelphia Eagles are. You just don't think about it because the Eagles were the ones to create it and are the ones that are most well known for it. I think this is a slight win today for the Buffalo Bills, even though it might not be the biggest deal in the world. Had this gotten banned, they still have Josh Allen at quarterback. And I still am going to take my chances on Josh Allen with a yard to go, being able to get that on a sneak without anybody pushing him. But as it stands right now, the way that they've been doing things, the Bills have been running this play, and they've been running it very successfully. Do not let the AFC Championship blind you from the fact that the reason the Bills ran that play as many times as they did in the AFC Championship, unfortunately, in failing effort, the reason they ran that play as many times as they did is because of the success that they were having up until that point. It was automatic for Josh Allen. It was automatic for the Bills. The biggest problem in the AFC Championship was that Joe Brady and the Bills offense refused to run it to another side. Steve Spagnuolo and the Kansas City Chiefs did their homework. They knew exactly where the Bills wanted to run it. Left side, right off of Dion Dawkins, essentially. Run it to the left side, push it that way, and move on. They stacked the box. They knew it was coming every time. They knew exactly where it was going every time, and they stopped it numerous times. So I think now, as Bills fans, when we think about the tush push, it went from something that was, wow, the Bills are really good at this. The Bills are automatic at this. It went from that to, oh, I want to vomit hearing about the tush push now, because all I can think about is the amount of times the Bills failed to convert it in the biggest game of the season. And you can argue that that was one of the bigger contributing factors to the Bills losing that game. There were multiple times it was ran and not converted. And in a game that finished that tight by 3 points, in a game where the Bills used it to try and extend a series where they did not get the first down and the Chiefs got the ball back. That's what we think about now. But the past 3 years, the Bills and the Eagles combined have ran this play more than any other team in the NFL. Those two teams combined ran it more than the entire league combined. 87% success rate. Here's the thing, though. Here's the big thing as to why I'm happy that this did not get banned. By the way, the voting came down to, of course, the 32 teams all having a say on it. 22-10 was the final vote. There were 22 teams in favor of getting rid of this play. But based on the voting needed, I believe it needs to be 3/4 majority or something like that. The 22-10, the 10 votes voting to keep the play was enough to overrule banning it. So even though there was a majority vote to get rid of it, those 10 votes were able to uphold the play, keep it alive. Alex is coming in saying he needed 24, so that's what it is, right? So 24 would be 3/4 of the league, right? That's a 3/4 majority, right? So essentially the banning of the play lost out by 2 votes. If it would have finished 24-8, we would not see the tush push again. Here's why I think this is a win, though. And we'll talk in a second about why it's a win for the Bills itself. But here's why I think this is a win for the league. I think you get into real muddy waters when you start taking specific plays that have no link to added injury. When you start taking plays that don't necessarily look sexy, they're not the prettiest play in the world. They might not be to the letter of the law an NFL type play. When you start taking plays that other teams are really good at and other teams can't run for whatever reason, either they don't have the offensive line for it, they don't have the quarterback for it, they're just not equipped to run it. When you start banning plays for a variety of those reasons, you're getting into muddy waters. Then you're opening up a can of worms that I don't know if you can put the lid back on, because once you ban one play, well, what happens when the next play comes along? I mean, I know that the Wildcat formation that the Miami Dolphins invented over a decade ago, that formation didn't get banned. But you noticed as soon as the Dolphins started running the Wildcat, what happened? Everybody else started running it. You don't see it a whole lot these days because, I mean, let's be honest, the Wildcat formation isn't all that great. If you have a quarterback worth his salt, you're probably not going to be running the Wildcat formation all that often because you're taking the snap out of your quarterback's hands. But the point is that once you have this new wave of a play or this new style, it catches on like wildfire in the NFL. That's happened with this tush push, but only for the teams that have the personnel to execute it. The Buffalo Bills have the personnel. They have one of the best offensive lines in the league. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and they have the most athletic, the biggest, the strongest quarterback in the league at that as well. A play like this is perfectly designed for a team like Buffalo. It's also perfectly designed for a team like Philadelphia, which, of course, is why they're known for it. They invented it and why they're so great at it. Jalen Hurts fits into those crevices. He's small enough to get into any open gap on that line. They also have the best offensive line in the league, and they have had that for some time now. It's perfectly designed for those two teams. But we're talking about, it's not a competitive advantage. It's more so you have a team that is built to be able to run this play. Other teams aren't. Why ban it simply because other teams aren't able to run it as well as the top of the league? That'd be like saying, well, Josh Allen can throw it 80 yards, so let's ban any play that results in a throw from a quarterback that has air yards going beyond 65 yards. Just because 20 other teams in the NFL can't run that type of play because their quarterback doesn't have the arm strength doesn't mean you shouldn't be allowed to do it. And my whole point here is I think that you're getting into muddy waters once you start getting rid of specific plays without any real concrete reason as to why. Somebody made a point earlier on Twitter, and I thought it was a genius one. They said that if the Jacksonville Jaguars were the team to have invented the tush push, say Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars were the team to invent the tush push, and they were really good at it, but they didn't win a Super Bowl. They didn't make the playoffs. They haven't been this world beater in the NFL. Would anybody really care? Would this even be up for a vote today? And I thought about it, and the answer is probably no. People probably wouldn't have given a damn about this play if the Jaguars and a couple of other teams were running it, but the Jaguars in particular were known to be the team based around that play. The Philadelphia Eagles were the best team in the NFL last year. They go into this year as the best team in the NFL, and they, of course, are the team that is known for this play and runs it the most often and is the most successful at it. But because of the success the Philadelphia Eagles have had in the world stage that they have been on the last couple of seasons, that's why the play has gained the notoriety that it has. And it's gotten to this point where it wound up being voted on. And you have to wonder that if one of these lesser teams were known for this play and they ran it more than anybody, if anybody would really care. And then that's when you have to ask yourself, well, are we banning this because it's an optic thing? It doesn't look great. Are we banning this because the Eagles are really, really good at it and most of the other teams in the NFL aren't? Are we just getting rid of this just because? And I think if that's the case, and I think there's certainly an argument for it. In fact, I'd argue there's more of an argument for banning it on that end than there is on the whole it causes more injury side because we just don't have the evidence for it. I think you're going down a real slippery slope there. What's to say the next play comes out, like I mentioned earlier, the Wildcat, the new formation comes out, the new tush push, the new Wildcat, whatever, and some team is insanely good at it. Other teams can't do it nearly as well. A couple are replicating it, and they're doing it fine, but we just don't love the play. One team's extremely good at it. Doesn't look all that great. Well, then we're just going to ban that too. Here's the other main thing here, though. The NFL, it already has a problem with throwing flags on plays that aren't warranting a flag. The NFL oftentimes, play by play, whether there's a flag, no flag, whether you're an inch shy of the first down or an inch beyond the line to gain, there's so many subjective plays in this league. So many. Do we really need to add one more subjective outcome onto the plate of these refs who we already have complaint after complaint about on a weekly basis throughout any given year? Has it not felt like the last several years we're constantly saying to ourselves, man, is this not the worst officiated season you've seen? I feel like we've been saying that a lot. And that's because there's so much on the shoulders of these refs. There's so many different rules on any given play. And most of it comes down to the subjectivity of the ref making the ruling. I mean, we can go back. Speaking of that AFC Championship game, we can go back to Bills Chiefs AFC Championship game this past season on that tush push. It looked like the one ref on the one side had given the Bills the first down. Meanwhile, the other ref on the other side runs in. He says, no, it's subjective. It wound up being ruled no. But everything's like this. Everything's this narrow. And how many times do we see a pass interference or a holding or a roughing the passer? And it's just so ticky-tack. It's so subjective, and it has such a large outcome on the game. Do we really need to add one more thing for the refs to have to throw a flag on or debate throwing a flag on or to overanalyze? I don't think so. Because this ruling today, it goes beyond just your classic tush push, and as I'm seeing in the comments, the snowplow, as the Bills have coined it, and of course, created their own version of it that is, like I mentioned, just as effective as the Philadelphia Eagles version. Do you really need one more thing? There are so many different plays and so many different flags and so many different outcomes that are debated widely on a week in, week out basis because of how close it was, how subjective the call was, how controversial it was. This is just one more thing to add to the plate. And what I was just about to say is that it goes beyond just that play. This would have also entailed, so say, let's just rule Josh Allen out of it, right? Let's say the Bills are on the 5-yard line and Josh Allen hands the ball off to James Cook. He gets around the edge and he gets to the 2-yard line. He's not in the end zone yet. And then out of nowhere, here comes, I don't know, Dion Dawkins, Spencer Brown, and Dawson Knox. And they start shoving James Cook from the 2-yard line into the end zone. Based on what was being ruled on today, what would have been eliminated is essentially the pushing of any other player. It was being coined as the tush push ruling or the tush push voting today. That's the play that was being used as the marquee for what was being ruled on today. But what would have also been eliminated is that play that I just spoke on. You would no longer be allowed to have Dion Dawkins, Spencer Brown, and Dawson Knox shove James Cook from the 2-yard line into the end zone. What you would have been able to do, though, is shove the pile. So say that there's a massive pile, a huge scrum around James Cook of Bills players and whoever they're playing. You'd be allowed to shove the pile, but you wouldn't be allowed to shove James Cook himself over the goal line. You see what I'm getting at here? Once again, a very subjective play. So now on that play, say the Bills get in. It's a massive moment in the game, late in the fourth quarter. They need the touchdown. They get in off of that push. You look over in the corner of the field. You look down on the lower third score bug, and you see flag on the play. And it gets called for illegal pushing or whatever the hell they would have called it. Do we really need one more of those? One more of those as we take a look at the replay. They never actually pushed James Cook. They were pushing the pile around him, but because it looked like they were pushing James Cook from the side, Judge, they threw the flag. They can't review it. They can't pick it up. It backs them up 10, 15 yards, whatever it would have been, and the game's altered. Do we need one more of those type of plays? And the answer is no. You simply do not need it. One more thing for the refs to have a ability to alter the outcome of a play in a game. That, to me, I think is the biggest benefit here out of this play being upheld and remaining in the league. It's not just the tush push itself, but it's moments like that. The amount of times throughout the season, you'll see it again this upcoming year. We saw it all last year. And of course, you sit here and you're like, give me an example. Well, the games go so rapidly. The weeks fly by so quickly. You sit back and you can't even think of what it was at the time you were so upset about or what was so controversial, but you know that it happens. And that's because you're going to watch a replay and there was a holding call and you're going to be like, where the hell was the hold? I don't see a hold. Nobody held anybody. You're going to look at a roughing the passer. What are you talking about? He barely touched the guy. You're going to look at a pass interference. What are you talking about? That was as clean a defense as you can possibly play. Yet a flag was thrown. The outcome of that play is altered. And by virtue of that play being altered, the game is essentially altered. There's so many of those moments. This would be adding yet one more to the plate. And I have been the biggest advocate of trying to remove those type of moments from the game, whether it be further utilizing the sky judge. As we know, that the NFL is implementing technology now to be able to determine whether or not the ball crossed the plane, or the ball crossed the first down marker, no longer having to rely on the sticks and chains like we got hosed on in the AFC Championship game and like the NFL has been relying on since the beginning of the game. There are so many ways to rule out a lot of this nonsense that has a big effect on each and every game. We need to continue to take strides towards eliminating those moments as opposed to adding an additional moment or an additional ruling or an additional moment of subjectivity. Continuing to get rid of these, I think, is a good thing. Adding another one is not. And that's why I'm glad that this play will remain. And once again, this is a benefit for the Bills. Do I think they would have been dramatically affected if this were to be banned? No. Because once again, prior to this play becoming a massive nationwide phenomenon, I mean, we all remember Josh Allen's QB sneak against the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day where he fumbles it, gets the ball back, gets the first down. We know how incredible of a QB sneaker Josh Allen is. They would have figured it out. And like I said earlier, if they need a yard, I still will take my chances with Josh Allen going and getting it without somebody from behind coming up and shoving him over the line. I still think Josh Allen's going to get it. I don't think they would have been dramatically affected by it. But the Bills have ran this play more than anybody else not named the Philadelphia Eagles. This play has become, in reality, a staple for the Buffalo Bills short game offense. It really has. The Bills and the Eagles have ran this play more than the 30 other teams combined, and they have been incredibly successful at it. 87% success rate in terms of converting that play into either a touchdown or a first down. The rest of the league combined, I believe, is at 71%. So we're talking about a 16% increase, 16% advantage for the Bills and the Eagles. I think this is a slight victory today for the Buffalo Bills in terms of how they operate, in terms of how much they run this play. And I think this is a pretty sizable victory for us as fans in the league itself. You do not need one more play to sit back and say, well, I don't know, Jim. I don't know if he really did push him on the back. It looked like he was pushing the lineman in front of him and he got pushed into him and that's how he scored. I mean, come on. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? It's pointless. Because the fact that you would be able to legally push the pile but not push the player, can you just think about that for a second? Think about it right now while we're talking about it. You're legally allowed to push the pile of players. You're not allowed to push an individual player. And you know damn well there's going to come a moment, whether it be in overtime, late in a big game, or really just ever. I don't care if it's in the first quarter. Third down, goal to go, and the running back or the wide receiver or whoever gets pushed over the pylon touchdown, that would be ruled back on a penalty. We don't need it. There's already way too many moments in a game that can be flagged. There's already way too many moments in a game that are overanalyzed, debated, and have a ton of subjectivity that ultimately comes down to whoever the ref is that day and however he's feeling about the play. We do not need one more of those, and I think the NFL got it right today. The owners got it right. 10 votes going against banning the tush push, and it will remain in the NFL ether for at least 2025. Now, I wonder if this will continue to be voted on year in and year out until it is removed from the game. It does seem like the higher ups, and by that I mean Roger Goodell in the front office of the NFL, it does seem like they do not want this play in. And I think that that is strictly due to the optics. It's just not a sexy play. It isn't part of the product that the NFL has now turned into the most popular sport in the entire country, the most lucrative sport in the country by an insane margin. It does not necessarily fit the whole excitement, beauty, whatever of the NFL. But who cares? Who cares? It's not like you're seeing it every single play. You're seeing it in very specific circumstances. There's one moment last year that you can recall that I feel like was a major catalyst in this in terms of wanting it banned. A lot of these teams wanting it banned, a lot of people wanting it banned, and perhaps Roger Goodell wanting it banned. I'm sure you recall NFC Championship game. And by then, the game was already well in hand. But do you remember when the Eagles were right in front of the goal line and the Commanders jumped off sides, I think 3 consecutive plays in a row, trying to get a jump on the tush push? And then do you remember the ref coming out and saying, if the Commanders jump off sides again, the Eagles will automatically be rewarded a touchdown? Do you remember that? I've never seen anything like that in my life. Never. That was the first time in all my years watching football that I had ever seen a ref come out and say, hey, if you don't cut that out, we're going to give the other team a touchdown. In that moment, it looked really bad. It looked bad. Because if you're like us who watch football every second of every Sunday, Monday, Thursday throughout the season, and you've never seen that before, what is the casual fan going to say when they're watching? They're saying, why the hell is that guy jumping over the line 3 consecutive times and they're blowing it dead? And then why is the ref coming out and saying they're just going to gift the other team a touchdown because he keeps doing that? It doesn't look great. But once again, so what? You can't just start banning things because it doesn't look great or because 1 or 2 teams are way better at it than the rest of the league. I think you're getting down into real muddy waters. You're getting into real uncharted territory that isn't necessary. I think it's a W for the NFL today that they decided to keep that play in. And, I think it's one of those cool moments, at least through my lifetime, where the play was originated by a team that has been extremely successful, just won a Super Bowl. This is one of those plays that they'll talk about forever, whether it continues to be utilized to the extent it currently is or not. Only time will tell. Whether it continues to be put on the chopping block and then it's eventually vetoed out of the league at some point, there's potential for that too. But there's part of me that does like the tush push. It's unique. It's different. Do I think it looks ugly? Do I think it's a non-footballish type play? I mean, yeah, I do. It's not like it's my favorite play in the world. But in the circumstances that it's used in, I don't see the problem in it. I don't think it needed to be banned, and I'm glad they got this one right. Saw somebody in the comments saying, that somebody, Kim saying, she's saying, no one has gotten hurt yet. Now, this is the moment right here to me. This, to me, is where it could all be drastically altered at some point. And I've said this before. I don't think there's any reason right now to ban it. But it seems like that the NFL is looking for any reason possible to ban it. That's why it had gone the distance it had up until this point, constantly being debated, voted on, tabled, and then eventually, finally today, only by a mere 2 votes, kept in the game. I do think that if on one of these plays, whether it's this year, next year, whenever, at some point on a tush push, if somebody does get drastically hurt on it, I could very easily see this play getting banned the following offseason with that injury being used as the primary point of example as to why it needs to be banned. Now, I think that's ridiculous because you could say that about any play. You could say that about any given play. In fact, you could say that about the sport itself. It's the nature of the game. You have the biggest, most athletic human beings on the planet going 100 miles an hour at one another. Yeah, we all know that injuries are certainly part of the game, unfortunately. But it's the reality. And you could make this argument about any play at any given time. But I do think because of what seems to be this desire to get rid of the play. If there is a drastic injury sustained by a player while this play was being run, I could very easily see that being the reason the following offseason why this play is put back on the table, redebated, and then eventually banned. But for now, it remains in the game, and I'm all for it. Once again, I think it's a W for us fans. One less thing to worry about seeing a flag on. I think it's a W for the refs. One less thing to have to worry about. One less thing to have to convene together, have a 5-minute, coffee break, deciding whether or not we should throw the flag on this or what to do. No need for it. And I also think just in terms of the league itself, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I really don't. You got a couple of teams that run it. Like I said, the Bills and the Eagles run this way more than any other team. If you're watching, if you're watching the Texans and the Browns, the odds of you seeing a tush push are probably zero. The only time you're really going to see this is if you're watching a Bills game or an Eagles game. Now, let's just hope with the amount of tush push talk that we have been exposed to over the last couple of months, Joe Brady and company have found a way to run that play to the right side of the ball as opposed to only the left side of the ball and get that success rate back up closer to 100% than 87%. Because if the Bills had that success rate at about a 90% instead of an 87%, maybe we'd be sitting here right now talking about the Bills winning a Super Bowl last year because a couple of those tush pushes that did not go their way in the AFC Championship game propelled them to the big game. But you can expect Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills to continue to run that play until it is eventually banned. But for now, it is not. Now, that was not the only thing that was discussed today at this reconvened meeting from the owners' meeting a couple of months ago. There was a proposed change to the playoff format, and this wound up being taken off the table. It was proposed by the Detroit Lions, and this is something that's been tossed around for some time now. And it was finally put up for vote, but eventually taken off of the table completely. But I will tell you right now, this is going nowhere. This will be put back on the table at some point. What this was essentially a reshuffling of the deck when it comes to the playoff seeding. You have teams, for instance, like last year, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 9-8, winning their division and being guaranteed a home game in the playoffs. Meanwhile, you go to the Detroit Lions division, where you have the Packers, the Vikings, and the Lions all finishing with some of the league's best records. And we all, of course, remember the last game of the season, Lions-Vikings, that game coming down to either winning the division and being the number 1 seed or being the 5th seed. And a lot of people thought, well, that doesn't seem fair. You have the Tampa Bay Bucks who make it in by the skin of their teeth. They win a very weak division, barely going over 500, yet they get a top 4 seed because they won their division. They get a guaranteed home game. Meanwhile, the Minnesota Vikings were a couple of plays away from being the 1 seed. Now they're on the road to kick things off in the wild card round. So what the proposed rule change was essentially the playoff seeding would be formatted based on the amount of wins you had as opposed to winning your division. So in a circumstance like last year, the Vikings wouldn't have been the 4th or the 5th seed. They would have been whatever seed. It would have been based on the amount of wins that you had. Now, the reason why the NFL wants to do this, it seems, is because they think that it will make the games, they think that it will make the games at the end of the season matter more because teams will be playing for higher seeds than they wouldn't be otherwise. So, for example, if a team already has their division locked up and all they can get is the 4th seed based on the records of the top teams winning their division, well, week 17 and week 18 might matter more because it goes beyond just winning your division. Now, if you have a better record than a division winner, then you very likely could be playing for a home playoff game as opposed to that division winner. They think that those games will matter more. Therefore, the ratings will go up more. Therefore, more money will be made. I could very easily see this coming down the pipe at some point. Very easily. To me, though, much like a lot of the stuff that's debated around the NFL in terms of tweaking and changing things, nobody's doing it better than the NFL right now. I mean, they're nailing it. Everything they do as of now is gold. Everything. They've taken over Christmas Day from the NBA completely. They've taken it over. They have now turned the sport into a 365-day affair, where now the draft and free agency and offseason is more of a topic of conversation on every television show, on every radio show, on every podcast. It's more of a topic of conversation than the middle of the NBA season, the NHL season, what have you, the MLB season. The NFL is king, whether it's actually being played at the given moment or whether it's something ancillary to do with the game. Like I mentioned, the draft, free agency, the offseason in general. That's just what the league's become. It's massive. It's the biggest thing in the league. It's the biggest thing in the country. And not only do the ratings and the viewership show that, but the money and the dollars show that as well. That's a long-winded way of saying, what's the point of continuing to add all these changes? You've already added a 7th playoff team just a couple of seasons ago. You've already added a 17th game. You're going to eventually be adding an 18th game. And the biggest change you're seeing right now is this influx of international games. There are a ton of international games right now. You don't have to go back all that far to remember that the only international game you would see on the full docket of NFL games going into any given season was Jacksonville versus whoever over in London. And we know the Bills had a couple of those games coming up before the international games became huge. That's what international NFL football used to be. A game or two overseas, 99% of the time, it was Jacksonville playing whoever. That's no longer the case. They're now sending the best teams overseas to not just London, but literally everywhere. You have the Kansas City Chiefs, who have been the best team in the league, bar none, the last half decade or more, kicking off the season on a Friday night in Brazil to start the year. And that's just one of a slew of international games. I couldn't even tell you right now how many there are this year. How many are there? There's a million of them. I couldn't even tell you. I don't even know when they are or who's playing in them. That's what it's become. There's all these international games, a ton of them. And Roger Goodell has said that within the next 5 years, you can very well expect there to be 16 international games during any given season, which would mean, I'm assuming, outside of week 18, there's going to be an international game every single week of the entire season, which would also mean that every single team in the league is going to play an international game every single year. And the locations of these games get further and further away in far more obscure areas, different places. The game is adding stuff all the time. Some of it's great. I think the new kickoff rule is fine. I don't mind it at all. I like the idea of trying to promote that play into actually being a play as opposed to a throwaway, which is also trying to promote player safety. Additions like that, I'm fine with. You know, backing up the extra point at however many years ago from making it automatic to, this is actually changing outcomes of games now because it's backed up to the point where it's no longer a gimme. I like stuff like that. You know, make it more fun, the competitive nature of it. But you already have such a perfect formula. And I think if you were to change the playoff seeding, change the playoff formatting, one, I think you're sort of devaluing the meaning of the division. The divisions would still matter, but would the rivalry against the Patriots and the Jets and the Dolphins, would it matter as much with these rules being changed? You're kind of seeing it right now in college football where the interconference games used to matter so much, and they still do. But now it doesn't matter as much because of the whole new playoff format. It's a whole different territory, college football now. It's a whole different game, really. And you can argue whether that's better or worse. But it just feels like right now the NFL has a perfect formula in place. They've been executing it to a T forever. And now it's gotten to the point where the NFL, because of how well they've been doing with literally everything that they've done, it is the most popular sport in the country, the most lucrative, and it's only getting bigger and bigger and better and better. I don't see the need to tweak something that doesn't feel like it needs to be tweaked. You know the saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I don't think the playoff formatting as it currently stands is broken. You already added the 7th team. You already have nearly half the league making the playoffs year in and year out. I don't think we needed to value what the divisions are and what they've been historically for the league. And I also just don't think that you make a drastic change like this in pursuit of potentially having higher ratings at the end of the year and making more money on the back end because you're selling those games to whoever. I mean, we're going up into the season here. How many different platforms have a game this year? 8? What is it? Netflix, Amazon Prime, ESPN, Fox, CBS, YouTube. I mean, I've said it before. I mean, next year you're going to have Disney Plus is going to have a game, and food and whatever a Crunchyroll is going to have a game, and Paramount Plus. I think they already have games, Paramount Plus, because they're an affiliate of CBS. This is what it's all coming down to. How can we make these games mean more? Not necessarily because they need to mean more, but because they're going to generate more money. Because hey, this game means slightly more than what it would have in the original playoff formatting. And we can sell that game to, I don't know, Crackle, right? We can play this game on Crackle and sell it to them for $2 billion to broadcast the game in week 18 and everybody's happy. I just don't think it's necessary. I like the playoff formatting the way it currently is. And maybe that's because the Bills have a walk in their division and I don't want to change things up right now the way that they currently are. You look at how much tougher the Chiefs division is. You look how much tougher the Ravens division is. I mean, wouldn't it be something if right now all this division situation in terms of how you're seeded in the playoffs, wouldn't it be something if that drastically changed in the middle of the Bills finally catching a break after going nearly a quarter century of being owned by Tom Brady in the AFC East, having no chance of making the playoffs? The Bills finally are in a situation where it would be almost impossible for them to miss the playoffs based on how weak that division is. I just think it would be incredibly ironic if something drastic that way were to happen. Because you know what would happen? If it did end up getting implemented, whatever it would be, you know what would happen? Somehow it would wind up going against the Bills in some way. It's kind of like I've brought this up numerous times. As soon as the Bills got good enough to be in contention for a 1 or 2 seed, the 2 seed no longer got the bye. The Bills would have had multiple byes under Josh Allen in the playoffs if the old playoff formatting still existed. And that's the other thing. It's not like we're due for a playoff tweak here. There's been numerous. They added the 7th team. They got rid of the 2 seed bye. And the Bills have been losers in that situation. The Bills haven't backed into a 7 seed. They would have had multiple byes under Josh Allen. Instead, the 2 seed, nope, they're playing. Whereas a decade ago, they would have been sitting at home, well-rested, getting ready for the divisional round. So you just know that if that rule were to get passed and the division no longer matters as much and the cards get shuffled in such a way that, whatever the Bills did in the division doesn't matter nearly as much towards their playoff seeding. I don't know. I could just see it now. Can't you? I'm trying to look up the exact specifics on this. Because I'm telling you right now, this is going nowhere. This will 100% be brought back onto the table and revoted on at some point, and I would not be shocked. Because according to Pro Football Talk and other sources, there's been a lot of, quote, arm twisting going on by Roger Goodell to pass this through. And I think that's because, like I just mentioned, the dollar's involved. These games will be more of they'll have more implications, whatever those implications would be. They'll have more implications at the end of the year based on differentiating the seeding. And because of that, those games are worth more because the viewership's going to be higher and they can sell them out to the highest bidder because they're selling them out to everybody. I mean, like I just said to you, how many streaming services? It's going to get to the point. I think I saw, I don't know how real this is, but I saw something online the other day. If you want to watch every single game this season, you have to spend $1,500 out of pocket. If you want to be able to watch every single NFL game, legally, of course, if you want to be able to watch every single game, you would have to pay $1,500, I believe it was, in subscription fees in order to watch every single game. So I'm looking this up right now. So it would take the 7 playoff qualifiers and then seed them based on the record, like I mentioned. So the division champions would no longer be guaranteed the 4 seed at worst. That would be the biggest change. So you're no longer guaranteed a top 4 seed. If this were to have passed, of course. You would no longer be guaranteed a top 4 seed if you won your division. And I think no matter what the outcome of that would be, you can't argue against the fact that the divisional games would be devalued, and that striving to win your division every year, which of course you're going to do anyways, because if you're winning your division, you're still going to be a playoff team. You're still damn well going to be one of the better teams in the league, because if you're winning your division, your record's indicating that, right? I just think that you're getting rid of something that has been a staple in the game. So I'm glad we're not switching it up as of right now. Doug's asking, it didn't pass, right? No, it didn't pass. So the Lions apparently were the ones to propose this, and no wonder. I mean, even though they were on the beneficial side of this last year, they won their division and got the 1 seed. Even though they were on the beneficial side of this, if they would have lost that Week 18 game to the Vikings, they would have been on the road Week 5. Or with the 5 seed in round 1. Rob saying, Zeba, did the Lions withdraw because they're scared they're going to have a down year? I don't know why it was withdrawn. I really don't know why. I don't know if it was simply their doing and they're doing alone. I don't know how this works. I don't know if a team can just propose a rule and then withdraw it. I don't know if that's how this works. I feel like if a rule is proposed and other teams like it, then it would probably remain on the ballot. I just think that I think there was other things of more pressing matter this year, and that's why they decided to table it. They were more focused on this whole tush push thing, and they were focused on the Olympics, which we'll talk about in a second, which awfully odd to me. But one other point that's being made about this playoff situation is that you would probably have to kind of reconfigure how you made the schedule. Because if the division championship doesn't matter as much, then you would probably have to put more of an emphasis on the conference games themselves. And if it was simply all based on how you're doing in the conference, well, some teams would have an advantage over others based on how their schedule pans out. And I know every year teams have advantages over others based on their schedule. Once again, though, it's just one more thing. I think you're adding one more thing into a stew of a million other things, and it's just not necessary. Everything's already going beautifully for the NFL. I don't know why you have to find ways to fix what isn't broken. I think what they've implemented up until now that wasn't around not all that long ago, like I mentioned, the new kickoff, pushing back the extra point, I'm for all that. I don't know why you got to go and change up the playoff formatting as it sits right now. You've already done that just a couple of years ago. It's fine. Leave it. I don't see the need to continue to do it, to continue to tweak with it. Now, I do get some, people's argument for this. Well, hey, we had the better record. Why aren't we playing at home? Well, that's just the rules. I mean, sometimes that's just the way it is. It makes the divisions matter. It makes it fun. That's why the divisions are so massive in this league. That's why each and every game you play in the division, that's why we always say, well, it's a divisional game. You never know. You never know, right? That's why on any given Sunday, the Ravens, who are having a hell of a year, and the Browns, who are in the toilet, well, hey, Browns beat them, right? 2 years ago. Bills on the road. Mac Jones lose. Bills week 1. Monday Night Football. Aaron Rodgers goes down 3 snaps in. Lose to Zach Wilson. Divisional games are massive, and they would still hold a lot of weight, but I don't think they'd hold as much weight as they currently do. And I don't want to see the value of the division be degraded because I just like the way that it currently is as it stands right now. All right. One other thing that was discussed heavily this weekend was passed was the ability for NFL players to play in the newest addition to the Summer Olympics, and that is flag football. Flag football is now being added to the Summer Olympics, and it was just ruled that NFL players will be allowed to participate. Now, it still has to go through the NFLPA. They're trying to figure out the logistics behind it because, of course, if a player is going to go play in the Olympics, they're risking further injury. And there needs to be some assurance that if you go and play in the Olympics and you get hurt, your contract for the NFL, I mean, it's got to remain intact. If you're going to allow these guys to go and play in the Olympics and incentivize them to go and do so, there has to be some sort of safeguarding of the player's contract and their well-being in terms of their relationship to the organization that they play for, right? Or else nobody's going to want to do it. Because if you go and get injured in an Olympic game, and then all of a sudden, you're out for the year, say it's a contract year or whatever else. I mean, there's just way too much risk there. Why would you risk millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to go play flag football? You probably wouldn't. So it's still got to go through the NFLPA in terms of them figuring out what those logistics are going to look like. But the long story short here is that the NFL ruled that NFL players will be allowed to play in the Olympics. Beyond anything else here, is this not insane to anybody else? Or is it just me? Is this not nuts? Why is this a thing? I mean, don't get me wrong. Am I going to watch the Olympic flag football? Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. But on what planet is the United States of America not going to win this gold medal in their sleep? You could take the practice squad guy. You could take the guy on the end of the farthest bench of every single team in this league, throw them on the Olympic squad, and they're going to walk to a gold medal. There's no other country in the world that has this level of football talent. I mean, there's only very few other countries in the world that actually have American-style football. Every country plays basketball. Every country's got your ancillary sports that are known to be Olympic sports, right? Gymnastics, fill in the blank, whatever. Football in the Olympics? What are your thoughts on that, Carol?
Yes.
You like it?
Yeah, fuck it.
Oh, wow.
No cursing.
That wasn't very ladylike of you.
I love the Olympics.
What are your thoughts on the NFL, though? NFL players playing in the Olympics. Could you imagine the best NFL players going and playing some pickup squad from France?
You would be very upset.
No, I wouldn't be upset. I just don't get it.
Because you would be upset that.
No. I'm not upset they're taking away my players. I'm not upset at all. I don't understand it. You're gonna field some squad from Switzerland that's supposed to go and stop Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill.
Oh yeah, we'd crush.
Thank you.
It's like you ever see the 100 Americans, 100 Brits?
No, I've seen the 100 men versus one ape. Maybe that's gonna be the next Olympic sport.
Wednesday at 1:00.
Well, we just found out that the Tush Push remains. I actually brought you up. Come on over.
Right, I love the Tush Push.
Ask the chat. What did I say earlier? I said, the Tush Push has reached cult status.
When I know about it.
When you know about it. And what's your favorite play in football?
Tush Push. When I see them getting all tight together, I'm like.
You love it. And so remember I told you they were going to vote to get rid of it? They voted to keep it. So congrats to you. Big day for you.
Kelsey.
All right. Well, maybe we'll celebrate later. Told you she's happy. Can we just internalize this, though, for a second? Can we think about this for a second? I mean, once again, I'm all for growing the game, and I'm going to watch Olympic flag football. But this idea that you're going to have Josh Allen, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Brock Bowers, Saquon Barkley trot out on the field and play some pickup team from Slovenia, I can't wrap my mind around it. What in what planet is this going to look at all acceptable for anybody other than the United States? Is there going to be a mercy rule in these games? How would it be even feasible to possibly fathom any other team coming within 3 scores of what the United States is going to put out there? Because it's not just, like I mentioned, taking your Z squad from the NFL and throwing them out there in the Olympic realm. They can pick and choose whoever they want. They just announced that any player can play. You can basically do what we all do in fantasy here. You can do pickup style, right? You're just going to pick the best players, the fastest players, most athletic players, the best football players on the planet, because the Olympics is supposed to be a competition of the best athletes on the planet. Now, the unintended / maybe intended consequence here, I don't know, 100 years from now, when this starts becoming increasingly competitive, this is, it's a great point that Badesh is bringing up here. He's saying, pretty sure someone from another country is going to get an NFL contract. I mean, maybe that happens. We look at it with basketball, for instance, right? American basketball forever. I mean, and they're still winning the gold. But now you're noticing over time, the international growth of basketball has gotten to the point where the majority of the best players in the NBA right now are non-U.S. natives. The Olympic teams that are countries not named the United States are incredibly competitive. Been giving the United States a run for their money for a while now, and it continues to get even more and more tight each and every year. But basketball is one of those games that anybody can pick up a ball. As long as you got a bucket and a ball, you can play basketball. Football, it's a whole different ball game. Yeah, you can play catch around the yard. But football, it's a whole different. Not everybody can just walk out onto a field and play football. You just can't. So you guys got to let me know in the chat what your guys' whole thought is on this and what it's going to look like. Because, like I said, maybe 100 years from now, with the evolution of the game, and maybe it grows American football worldwide and it starts getting huge in other areas, and then these teams start getting really good and competitive, whatever. But that's a century from now, in my opinion. How the United States doesn't just take a nap and then wake up on the top of the podium to receive their gold medal every year this is going to be in existence is beyond me. Now, it would be pretty cool, say Josh Allen goes and plays, by the way, it's Josh Allen's birthday. So happy birthday to 17. But imagine 17, today is 29th birthday. Imagine he goes and he's got the MVP. Eventually we're going to be getting the Super Bowl champion in Buffalo as well. So we'll throw that on there. And then you can throw Olympic gold medal champion on your resume when you're walking across the stage to get your gold jacket in Canton. You can have your gold medal on. There seems to be, there's been this massive push for flag football recently. The NFL has been all over it. I don't know what the angle is. Maybe it's because there is now more than ever a large portion of parents who do not want their children playing tackle football, and maybe the NFL is leaning into the flag game to continue to get kids like that who might not play football otherwise to play the game and then go from there. I don't know. If not for anything else, it's incredibly intriguing. I think it's going to be something we're all going to watch. But when I hear about NFL players being allowed to play in the Olympics, play flag football in the Olympics, one, I don't know why they wouldn't be allowed to. They're American. It's an Olympic sport. And they're the best in the business at it. Why wouldn't they be allowed to unless the NFL said, hey, this violates your contract? I just don't understand how you're going to take Josh Allen and Saquon Barkley and Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill, put them out there against a team from Japan and expect that game to be even remotely competitive. I'm dying to see it. If not for anything else, I'm dying to see it. But you guys let me know in the chat what you think in terms of this whole Olympic flag football thing really being a real deal thing where we're going to have NFL players out there competing for gold medals now. It almost just seems like it's not even, it's almost laughable. Now, in a weird twist of fate, wouldn't it be, this is on the other end of the spectrum here. I mean, you imagine that same team I just told you, you imagine that team you field right there, they go out and lose to, I don't know, go out and lose to Russia in the quarterfinals, and you'd be like, what? You'd be like, what? And then, as Badesh said earlier, we start recruiting people from all over the world. Turns into the NBA. We're getting these insane international football players that we never in a million years could have imagined. Badesh is saying you got to start somewhere. I mean, I agree. I'm just saying that the start right now, the start in the foreseeable future from that start, is going to be a whole lot of dominance by the United States of America. But man, that's going to be fun to watch. See my man. I see a lot of people talking to my man Abe in the chat. Abe's got time today. I've seen him comment Jim Kelly 0-4 about 1,000 times. Come on, Abe. Half of us weren't even alive for that. Who's Abe's team? I can't even see his profile picture. What do we got here? What is it? I got to squint. Well, welcome in, Abe. I see you got time this afternoon. What is he? Oh, he an Eagles fan? Oh, he probably Eagles. Okay, the Birds, he's saying. Champs, baby. Hey, that's right, Abe. We'll see you. Abe, we'll see you week 17 this year. We're very excited for it. And hey, Abe, listen. Don't get on the chat in here. I was talking very highly of your Philadelphia Eagles earlier, and I was in favor and still am in favor of sustaining the Tush Push. The Tush Push / Snow Plow Brethren. We have no reason to be getting after one another here. Come on. Nobody's running it better than the city of brotherly love and the city of Buffalo. And I think week 17, we could be looking at a February preview there, Abe. You know, I don't want to jinx it. But you can ask anybody in the chat here, Abe. I don't know who's beating Philly out of the NFC to get back there. So come on, take it easy. Take it easy. You know, it is interesting, though. And that's why and Richie Fresh mentioned this the last time we talked about the schedule. I saw it again yesterday on Twitter. And I'm sure Abe will love this. I still can't believe it, though. I wouldn't have guessed this, that the Eagles are still the only team Josh Allen has not beat. They're the only team. Of course, the last time the Bills played the Eagles was that overtime thriller in the rain. Eagles nail a 60-yard field goal to send it to overtime. That game was crazy. So that they're the last team that Josh Allen has to knock off in order to have a full 31 team full 31 team slate underneath of his belt. Question, though, I see a couple Eagles fans in there. Question, though, what were your guys' thoughts? We debated this when the schedule came out. What are your guys' thoughts on Bills-Eagles being week 17? Because I still do not understand why that game was scheduled for week 17. If that game ends up being irrelevant for either team or both teams, I think it's just a shame. It is one of the, if not the best game on the entire 2025 docket. I don't quite understand why that game is penciled in for week 17. if the Eagles have the 1 seed locked up and they've already won the East, or if the Bills do what they did last year and they win the AFC East before Thanksgiving, and cross your fingers, God forbid the Chiefs have a down year and the Ravens have a down year and the Bills somehow clinch the 1 seed. I don't know. All it takes is one of those teams to have things locked up for that game to be irrelevant. I just don't quite understand why you would even risk that, because that is as good as it gets. I mean, it genuinely is as good as it gets in the entire league. And I just don't know why you would risk either one of these teams, if not both, having nothing really to play for at that time. Now, I have mentioned it could wind up being Galaxy Brain Genius, where both of these teams absolutely need that win in order to remain alive for the 1 seed. Then you're talking about a playoff game in week 17 amongst two, differentiating conference teams, and it would be extraordinary. But I just think that's, there's a slight chance. I would say if we're looking at the Bills and the Eagles in totality, wouldn't you agree that it's far more likely that one of those two teams has seeding locked up than it is both these two teams fighting for their life in week 17? Now, it's possible, but my whole point here is I just don't get why you would even risk it. So, I don't know. I hope for the Bills' sake, and I'm sure the Eagles fans in here, I hope for your sake, that game is meaningless in a good way, because that would mean that things are airtight, locked up heading into January. Rob's coming in. Speaking of things that we need to add to the NFL, yeah, you know it. And I think Dion Dawkins was the one that was at the forefront of this. We do need an offensive line award. That's a good transition into what I wanted to talk about next. So, by the way, before we even get into it, well over 650 of you hanging out with me on a Wednesday afternoon, an impromptu smoke break to talk about the breaking news that the Tush Push / snowplow / you call it whatever will remain in the league in 2025. A little impromptu emergency smoke break. Oh my God. Oh, we have breaking news. We have breaking news. And this is why you do the impromptu smoke breaks on a Wednesday afternoon. This just in via Ian Rappaport 1 minute ago. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell announces some fun ones. The Bills will participate in Hard Knocks during training camp. You gotta be kidding. The Bills are hard knocksing it up this offseason. Breaking news right here on the smoke break. Wow. If you don't believe me, I'll show you the proof. I don't know why you wouldn't believe me. I mean, I don't know how I'd pull this out of thin air, but I'll give you the proof nonetheless. Here it is. 1 minute ago, Ian Rappaport, the NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell announces some fun ones. The Bills will participate in Hard Knocks during training camp, and the NFC East will be the focus for in-season Hard Knocks. So, wow, everybody's getting in on it. My Philadelphia Eagles brethrens that are in here watching, you're in on the in-season Hard Knocks. The Bills are getting the off-season Hard Knocks. I believe this is the first time the Bills have ever been featured on Hard Knocks. Wow. Guys, this is awesome. We are going to get that in-depth weekly view of the Buffalo Bills that we would never get otherwise. We get to sit down every week and talk about it here on the show. And I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to have the Bills on Hard Knocks so that we could jump on a smoke break and then dive into the episode. I've always wanted to do that with the other ones. And we did it a little bit with the Jets because it was just so polarizing with Aaron Rodgers. We would come on and talk about what we saw. But I'm not going to get into depth of every Hard Knocks episode if it has nothing to do with the Bills. This is awesome. You can guarantee it right now. Every week we are going to do an immediate Hard Knocks recap episode every single week of the Hard Knocks season. As soon as the episode concludes, smoke break will be live immediately for a recap episode. I've been waiting to do this forever. I can't believe it. Wow, I had no clue. I would have thought they would have gone with one of the other, younger teams with a bunch of storylines around them. This is interesting. There's a lot to get into on this. And Richie's saying it, and Richie's not loving it, but the point he's making is still valid. We're a good team. I don't know. Videsh is saying we could do a live react. We could do a live reaction. And maybe we'll do a live reaction. I don't know. We got time to figure it out. Either way, you can guarantee we will be doing Hard Knocks coverage, whether it be live or right afterwards. I mean, this is awesome. We're going to see so much we haven't seen before. Richie coming in saying, blessed to rock with Zeba on a Wednesday afternoon. The pleasure is always mine. Richie, you know that. Appreciate you hopping on this afternoon with me. I love this. This has happened a few times, by the way, where we're just on for a random reason and something cool like this happens. So the Bills are on hard. I'm trying to think, though, and this is what, to Richie's point, where he was just saying we're a good team. I don't quite know. I mean, obviously, let's think about maybe why this is happening. One, Josh Allen, MVP. That in itself, people are going to want to watch because of Josh Allen. The Bills have crazy ratings, crazy viewership. Fourth most primetime games the last half decade. Numbers are through the roof every time they're on TV. They have become one of the most viewed teams in the NFL. So that all makes sense, I guess. But doesn't it seem like Hard Knocks is typically reserved for a team that has a lot of different storylines, a lot of questions surrounding them? A lot of, I can't wait to see what happens with this particular player, what's going to go on with this new coach or whatever. I mean, in all honesty, I was praying to God they were going to do the Browns again. To get an under-the-cover look at that quarterback mess would have been a gold mine. Watching them try to navigate 4 quarterbacks currently in that room that could all be potential starters or could all be without a job in a couple of weeks, it's crazy. Usually Hard Knocks is reserved for one of those teams, right? One of those teams who's not great, usually missed the playoffs the year before, is trying to work their way back up and has a lot of storylines surrounding them, a lot of questions surrounding them. This is interesting, the decision to go Buffalo. But now I'm guessing, right? So you'll go to St. John Fisher for training camp and the HBO crew will be out there filming the whole thing. This is awesome. Videsh is saying they want to see the James Cook drama. Okay, maybe there's a storyline there. We got the Josh Allen MVP storyline. I will say, though, the James Cook drama, there ain't going to be much drama surrounding James Cook by the time training camp rolls around. We know what's going on there. There's no contract coming James Cook's way this offseason. So maybe next year, but I can't imagine there's going to be much surrounding that. Buffalo Bills on Hard Knocks. Oh my God, I'm stoked. What do you guys think in the chat? Are you happy about this? Are you upset about this? What are your thoughts? Oh my God, you guys weren't even kidding in the chat about the. We got another breaking news here about the offensive line award. I thought you guys were just throwing out things you wanted to see implemented into the NFL. It's a real thing. Once again, Ian Rappaport. We got all sorts of stuff flying our way this afternoon. Ian Rappaport reports 14 minutes ago, NFL executive Troy Vincent announces a new end-of-the-year award called the Protector of the Year to recognize the best offensive lineman of the year. Credit to Dion Dawkins and others for championing this cause. It's coming from all angles. Let's just talk about that real quick. One, how great of an ambassador has Dion Dawkins been for the game? You guys know my love, my affinity for Dion Dawkins, one of my all-time favorite Bill. I absolutely love him, both on the field and off the field. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit in pertaining to my top 10 most important players to the future of the Buffalo Bills. But Dion Dawkins, has there been a better ambassador for Buffalo? He does all the right things, but he also does the fun things as well. And when I say fun things, I mean like he'll throw the jabs at the Jets, right? He'll talk that crap. I love that. But he's also just been the best Bill. I mean, in terms of just being everything that this organization stands for. And I've had the privilege of meeting him several times. He is as great of a guy in person as you'd imagine him to be when you see him on TV. He is everything that's right with the league, everything that's right with the Bills. And he has championed, as Ian Rappaport said, the need to give notarization or notoriety rather to offensive linemen. It is the most thankless job in the sport, the offensive lineman. And the Bills and Josh Allen have taken steps offensively because of how great this offensive line has been. The Buffalo Bills are not a 30-point-a-game team last year. James Cook's not a 20-touchdown scorer. Josh Allen doesn't have an historically low turnover rate and an historic, not historic, but might have been, but lowest sack rate in the NFL, if not for that offensive line. It's about time these guys get recognized, and I absolutely love that. Now, how they'll determine who the best offensive lineman is, that seems to be easier said than done. I don't know how they're going to determine that. I don't know how they're going to pick out the finalists and run through the film and determine who's best. Not a whole lot of stats for offensive linemen. Guess you could go by, sacks allowed or whatever. Might be a tough award to kind of narrow down and determine who the candidates are and to give one. But I absolutely love this because it felt like it was long overdue. It felt like it's a position that deserves to have some recognition. Shout out to Dion Dawkins for being at the forefront of this, being vocal about it, making it known. And he really did make a difference here because that was a couple of months ago during the NFL honors when Josh Allen won the MVP. I think that was around the time Dion Dawkins had mentioned that he wanted to see an award for offensive lineman. A few months later, here it is. Once again, Ian Rappaport reports that Troy Vincent has announced a new end-of-the-year award called the Protector Award to recognize the best offensive lineman each year. Wow, shout out to Dion Dawkins. He pretty much created a new award that will very likely live on for eternity in the NFL and go a long way for guys who have been long overlooked and are who are very much deserving of getting recognition. I absolutely love that. What an awesome addition to the NFL honors and to the awards available to players. All right, let's go back to Hard Knocks here. Wow, I still can't get over this. Hard Knocks, Bills are on it. And I was not expecting this at all. Like I mentioned, it just feels like Hard Knocks is typically reserved for teams that aren't that great and that have a ton of questions surrounding them when you're tuning in to see what's going to happen with this team. What direction are they going in? This Buffalo Bills team, one of the best in the league. I can't remember the last time we've gotten one of the best teams in the entire league with the solo offseason Hard Knocks. We saw the AFC North Hard Knocks last year, the in-season one, which was great. All those teams are great. And that's why I thought it was such a fun watch. The NFC East will be getting that iteration of it this year. But you're getting the Bills going into 2025, being the only team in the NFL favored to win all 17 games, and they're going to be on Hard Knocks. My only conclusion to this decision would be that this is the Josh Allen effect. This is the reason why the Bills are on Hard Knocks is single-handedly because of Josh Allen. You win the MVP, they become as popular as they've become, and the NFL knows that the Buffalo Bills equals ratings, and throwing them on Hard Knocks is going to result in exactly that. But what we're going to see is unlike anything we've seen before. We do get the Bills embedded videos, which are awesome, but this is a whole other ballgame. This is broadcasted to everybody. Everybody watches Hard Knocks. You know, it's a weekly tune-in appointment television type program for any NFL fan, and the Bills are going to be on center stage for it. Now, I don't quite know what you're going to be looking at or looking for rather in this, but maybe that's not the angle they're going for this year. Maybe the angle that they're going for is just watching one of the better organizations and how they operate. And I've always been fascinated when it comes cut time, how these teams decide who they're going to keep, who they're not. We're going to get an under the hood look at how Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott operate when it comes to those decisions. We're going to see, I'm sure, a whole different side of Josh Allen. We're going to see exclusive content there. We're going to learn stuff about guys that we never knew before, about guys that might not be the A-list celebrity on the team that you come to find out has a really cool story or a really cool background or whatever. And that's the beauty of Hard Knocks. It feels like every year you fall in love with a couple of players because of their featuring on Hard Knocks. We're going to get that for some of these Bills players. Will's coming in. He's saying, "Bah, I just found out the Bills might be the team for Hard Knocks this year." They are the team for Hard Knocks this year. Will, it was just confirmed via Ian Rappaport and the rest of the NFL, the main NFL reporters there. It is confirmed. Bills are on Hard Knocks. Now, I understand that there's probably going to be some people who don't love this, right? We don't need the extra exposure. It's a distraction. Once again, let me reiterate. There's a lot of people who also do not like the idea that the Bills are constantly on primetime. They do not like the idea that the Bills do not play at 1 p.m. every week. This is the result of having a quarterback like Josh Allen. This is the result of having a team that you hoped you'd have for the longest time. When you go from being in the depths of mediocrity to the top of the league, the notoriety comes with that. The popularity comes with that. And the desire by the NFL to showcase you under the brightest lights becomes prevalent. And this is just one more example of that. I understand people might not love the extra exposure that Hard Knocks is going to bring the Bills. People don't love that the Bills have an erratic regular season schedule playing a multitude of different regular season games. But this is the result of getting the team you always hoped the Buffalo Bills would be for so long. And this is why, even if you don't love it, you really got to embrace it and you really got to enjoy it. Because if you're like me, growing up forever with a team that was never better than average, you were waiting and hoping and praying for times like this. You were waiting for the team to become a team that everybody wants to watch in primetime, that everybody wants to watch weekly on a show like Hard Knocks. And this is why I always view these things to be a positive rather than a negative. I always view these things to be awesome because you never know when it's going to come to an end. Josh Allen can't play forever. And when those cleats get hung up, we don't know what that's going to look like. I think we can safely say it's not going to look like what it currently looks like now. And the more exposure I can get to this team, the more access I can get, the more visibility they can get, the more we can enjoy every single second of this. Sign me up for it. Sign me up for it any day of the week. So I think that this is absolutely awesome. The Bills will be featured on Hard Knocks. When does that start? When does Hard Knocks start? So that'll probably be late July, early August it'll start. I think the off-season Hard Knocks is only 4 or 5 weeks long, typically. I'm just dying to see what we're gonna get. I mean, we're gonna get stuff, like I said, we're gonna get stuff that we're not used to seeing. We're probably gonna get the home life of like Sean McDermott and his family and Brandon Beane and his family. I just love seeing stuff like that. I think that these shows, I think that they humanize the guys that we watch on a weekly basis, the guys that we watch run the organization and keep the whole thing going. You get to see them from that human element. I think Hard Knocks does a really good job of that. That's what we're going to see for our Buffalo Bills. All right, I'm seeing in the chat here, Jeff and Rob are coming in saying that Hard Knocks starts on August 5th. So we're a little over 2 months out from that. And what a way to pass the time, too. That's another thing. Because that's right around the time when you're really feeling it. Oh, you're really, really feeling it, right? Football's right around the corner. You're going to get your weekly dose of Buffalo Bills every week on Hard Knocks, and then boom, the season's going to be here. And Videsh is making another great point. He's talking about the Hallmark movie that's coming out later this year. I don't know if you guys have seen, but the Hallmark movie that's coming out is featuring a ton of Buffalo Bills players, both current and former, as well as guys like Sean McDermott as well. Dion Dawkins is going to be in it. I believe Jim Kelly is going to be in it, and Thurman Thomas. It's bigger than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be like some random movie based around Buffalo and the Bills. I didn't realize why, or I didn't realize the extent that this movie was going to in terms of incorporating all of the actual players and members of the organization. And like you're saying, Vadesh, it's just one more thing. It's one more thing to add to the pantheon of the current era of the Buffalo Bills. Getting a damn Hallmark movie. I'll tell you right now, the 2005 Buffalo Bills weren't in the running for a Hallmark movie. I can promise you that. Just one more thing. You might be like, it's a Hallmark movie. Who cares? Why not? Why not? I'm in. I'm in. Fox 87. Is this an actual Fox affiliate? Because they're coming in. The name's Fox 87. They're saying explains why there is a Fox primetime preseason game. You're right. There is a primetime preseason game. The Bills will be playing their second preseason game of the year, I believe, at 8 p.m. So there you go. That must be coincided with the Hard Knocks there. A nice primetime preseason game to be showcased on Hard Knocks. I'm all about it. I absolutely love it. Wow, here it is. Here is the promo just posted 8 minutes ago by HBO. Right here, right now. Join the Buffalo Bills for training camp as they prepare for their biggest season yet. Hard Knocks returns August 5th on HBO Max. It's HBO Max, by the way, now, not Max. They're going back to their roots. HBO Max. Wow. This is exciting. I am stoked about this. One, for the obvious reasons, being able to watch them on the show and get that under the hood look and see all the different things we wouldn't have saw otherwise. But two, I just can't wait to talk about it. Like I said, we're either going to do a live viewing party or a post-episode recap every week. And I'm looking forward to that because we're going to be able to talk about all the different things we see that we probably wouldn't have known otherwise. I'm dying to see what that's going to entail. What are we going to learn? And how active will Josh Allen be in it? Sometimes the big stars of the episode or the big stars of the team aren't usually the biggest focal point of the episodes just because they have other obligations. And that's oftentimes where you get to know more about the guys you didn't know much about prior. We'll see how much Josh Allen is the focal point of it. And then, of course, the NFC East was announced to have the in-season Hard Knocks. What a great choice. The AFC North was a terrific choice last year. Obviously, the NFC East, the most popular division in the NFC with the four biggest fan bases in the NFC. That'll be a great watch because not only are you getting the Super Bowl champions in the Eagles, you're also getting the sophomore year of Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels, off of their NFC Championship appearance. You're getting the Giants with their whole quarterback situation. What's going to happen there? What's the situation going to be like for Brian Dable and Joe Shane after keeping their job? And then, of course, the Dallas Cowboys. You know, Jerry Jones is going to be all over the spotlight being featured on the in-season Hard Knocks. So a couple of great choices for both the off-season and in-season Hard Knocks. So August 5th will be when that kicks off. Man, I'm really excited about that. How about that? Right here live on the Smoke Break, we get breaking news. The Bills, I just didn't think this would happen. I just thought that the Bills had reached. It just felt like once you get to a certain degree of team, you're just not, you don't qualify for it. It always feels like they go for the bottom half teams just for whatever reason. maybe they're just taking a whole different approach now where they're trying to showcase some of the bigger and more prolific organizations. And I kind of like that approach because I think it's unlike what we've seen before, or at least in recent memory here. So that's just awesome, man. I'm stoked about it. Richie's coming in. He's saying, Hard Knocks, can the Bills get over the hump? Super Bowl 60. Oh, one more reason maybe why they're featuring the Hard Knocks is the last year at the Ralph. I don't know if that really matters much because it's not in season, but wouldn't that be something though, Richie? Right? You got the Hard Knocks last season at the Ralph, potential Super Bowl year. Got the Hallmark movie in December. J.A. coming off the MVP would be one hell of a calendar year for the Buffalo Bills if that could all come together. Richie saying, Bot looking like a kid on Christmas morning. Love it. Yeah, I love stuff like this, man. I just love it. I love it. I did not anticipate the Bills. Every time the Hard Knocks gets announced, I'm like, man, I wonder if the Bills will ever do this. And it felt like the better they've gotten and the better they've been, it seemed less and less likely, but I'm loving the approach that they're going with here. So Bills featured on Hard Knocks start in August 5th. And we'll be all over that. No question about it. All right. I was going to talk about my top 10 most important players to the future of the Buffalo Bills. I was going to talk about my contribution to Joe Marino's project. We've been doing that for about the last 5 years or so. I'm going to table that, though, because I want to talk about that for a while. There's a lot to talk about there, a lot of players, of course, to talk about. I wanted to talk about my reasoning behind how I ranked each player, how I got to that conclusion, who I left off, and why each particular player was in the slot that they were in, and then talk about the project overall. But I'm going to table that. I'm going to save that. I'll talk about it with Rico on Rico and Bot later in the week here. But do me a favor. Go on over to Locked On Bills. I'm sure you already know it by now, of course. Joe Marino's YouTube channel. Go on over there. The episodes are already posted. Go watch them. Get a good feel for the project. Get a good feel for the whole vibe of it. Really well done. Joe does a terrific job every year. It's always an absolute pleasure to be a part of that project. A ton of us did it this year. It was me, Greg Thompson, Jeremy White, Ryan Talbot. There was like 14 of us, a bunch of us, and it always turns out really well. And it's super fun to be a part of. And it's awfully interesting to see the consensus top 10 because every year it changes very drastically. So go watch those episodes. And then later on in the week, when I sit down with Rico, we'll talk about it. Maybe we'll make our own list together and we can do a list with the chat as well to see what your guys' thoughts are on the top 10 most important players to the future of the Buffalo Bills. Yeah. Craig Talbot. I said Greg Thompson and Ryan Talbot back to back. So yeah, Ryan Talbot he did it. Greg Thompson, myself, Joe Miller, Jeremy White, Nate Geary. There was like 14 of us. There was a lot of us. And it was awfully fun. It always is every year. So go check that out. We'll talk about that later in the week. But for now, wow, jam-packed impromptu smoke break on a Wednesday afternoon. We talked about the Tush Push remaining legal in 2025. We talked about the NFL players being allowed to play in the Olympics. We talked about the potential playoff schematics being changed, that being pushed to a later date and hopefully not returning. And then, of course, we got some breaking news that we got a offensive line award introduced, mainly because Dion Dawkins and him being vocal about wanting to recognize that position. We now have an official offensive line award that we'll see at the NFL Honors at the end of the year. And then, of course, the announcement of the Buffalo Bills being featured on Hard Knocks. And there'll be a lot more to come your way on that because I cannot wait for it. And we will be talking about that in depth throughout the summer. But that's going to do it for this afternoon's iteration of the smoke break. Hour 40 in the books. Appreciate you hopping on a hump day afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your week, folks. Me and Rico will be back on with you for Rico and Pop later in the week. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day. Much love as always. And go Bills.